Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Mike Shea here in Orlando. I've got Lisa Kahn with me and Henry Ziff in my London office. And the purpose today is to get an update on immigration with relation to E2 visas and L1 visas and what folks coming in from the UK and Europe and every country with a treaty status can expect. So good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. Yeah, so the bummer right now for visa processing is since March 20th, the U.S. embassies and consulates have put the brakes on all appointments or canceled appointments and interviews for visa issuance, both for non-immigrant visas like E2 investor visas or L1 intercompany transferee visas, as well as immigrant visas. And they have not indicated when they're going to resume the interviews and the issuance of visas. It's really, from what I understand, and from what the State Department is saying, it's going to be on a country by country, embassy by embassy basis as to when they feel comfortable having the in-person, interviews again and having the public coming back into the embassies. And largely dependent on what the COVID-19 situation is in the various countries. So we have to kind of keep an eye on each embassy and the country situation going forward. At the moment, I'm not aware of any embassy that's resumed visa issuance. They have still been doing visa processing in the sense that, for example, London or Toronto will still accept E2 visa applications and they're still reviewing those and processing those. So the embassy staff has still been working. They may be working remotely or from home, but they're accepting the applications. They're assumedly reviewing the applications, but then the last step, which is the invitation and the scheduling of a visa appointment, that's what's been on hold. So, that's been happening, for cases that were filed, say, in maybe even January, February, that were reviewed and maybe interview ready that didn't have an interview in March or April. There's a bit of a pile of visa applications that's accumulating, and then when things open up, they're going to start interviewing. So it's likely to be, kind of a first in, first out. So for clients that are, still wanting to move forward with an investment in a business purchase, I think it's not a bad idea to go ahead and do that and get your case there and get it under review because there's probably going to be a little bit of a backlog on the visas when they do reopen.
So do we have confirmation that they are actually reviewing and doing the review, or are they just accepting? Do we know for sure that they're reviewing the packages and kind of going, okay, we're at step 3 of the step 4 process. All we got to do is have them call in for interviews, or are we just making a little bit of an assumption that they're actually government employees are working? Right.
I guess it's a little bit of an assumption. I could certainly email and inquire, if they're actually doing the full review, and then, I can do an inquiry and maybe follow up with you.
Yeah.
I think it's an assumption, perhaps that they're doing that because they're still working.
Okay.
And if they're not interviewing, they've got to be doing something. And this is true really of the local USCIS offices as well. Largely the local offices do in-person interviews for citizenship and for green cards. And, they usually start at, 7 in the morning and they're interviewing through maybe 1:32 in the afternoon. Those have stopped as well, although they're starting up again at the local offices very slowly.
So that was that the news article I sent you the other day that said USCIS was opening on?
Right, June 4th. June 4th, USCIS, their field offices are reopening, asylum offices, and the fingerprint centers, they call them the application support centers. But they're going to be, it's going to be a different sort of a setup than it was in the past. They had indicated at the Orlando office, maybe only 4 interviews at a time. They're not going to be doing interviews in the offices as they would before. They're going to probably do some in a conference room or where there's the ability to have social distancing. And logistically, the way the offices are set up, there's just not a lot of places to do that. So the interviews are going to be much less. They're going to be further restrictions on who can come. In the past, you could bring multiple family members to an interview or to a citizenship swearing-in ceremony. Now that's, it's going to be the applicant, and if the applicant has special needs, maybe an assistant, or in a marriage case, the couple, but that's it. You can't bring the children anymore. They're encouraging attorneys not to attend in person as I would have in the past, but to be able to attend telephonically. So we're definitely seeing changes there. Everybody's going to be wearing a mask. Everyone who's going to the office has to wear a mask. So it's a new world, you know, for everybody.
So Henry, I heard on the news this morning that London had opened up for schools. Is that right? That the kids are starting to go to school?
Yeah, so some age groups are back to school this week, and then as we go through June and July, our economy is beginning to open up. I think every country, even across the UK, so the 4 different countries, they're on slightly different kind of timelines, a bit like you guys have in the States. You know, each state, each county is doing stuff slightly differently.
So maybe that's an indicator, Lisa, that, you know, as the country goes, so too will the respective embassy in those countries.
Sure, I think definitely so.
Okay. So you and I had, prior to this call, talked a little bit about the distinction of status, E2, you know, and how some folks confuse a visa with actual status, because
Right.
there are quite a few people here on B1, B2s. And, you know, you and I discussed that case where someone's trying to do an L1. So could you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so I think it's important that people understand a visa is a page that's put into one's passport and can only be issued by a U.S. embassy outside of the U.S. The visa is essentially like a travel document. If you have gone to an embassy, obtained a visa, whether it's a visitor visa or an investor visa, for the validity of that visa, you're able to come to the U.S. And when you go through the airport and go through Customs and Border Protection, if you have a valid visa and you're coming in for the appropriate reasons as indicated on the visa, then you're admitted pursuant to that visa. If you're in the U.S., let's say as a visitor, and you've come in with a visitor visa, B1, B2 visitor visa, generally you would get a 6-month stay. Sometimes someone's coming to visit, and while they're here, they say, gee, I love it here. I'd love to maybe buy a business. They find a business, and they have the opportunity then to be able to file with immigration here to change their status from that of a B1, B2 visitor to an E2 investor if they meet all the criteria. And that filing then is done with USCIS here. If it's approved, then their status is automatically changed with the approval, and you can have the E2 for up to 2 years. So sometimes people will do that. They'll say, we found a business, we don't want to lose the business, we can't get a visa now, or it's taken too long to get a visa. Let's buy the business, we'll file with immigration, we'll ask for a change, we get that approval, and then maybe we close on the business, and we know we're good for the next 2 years. Right. That approval doesn't allow them to leave the US and come back in with the approval. If they want to leave the country and travel, then they still have to file a separate application at the embassy to get the visa. Right. But that's still doable. So people that are here pursuant to a visa, it can't be pursuant to an ESTA entry under the visa waiver program. You can't change status from that. But if they're here on a student visa, they're here on a B1, B2 visa, maybe they were here on another work visa like an H-1B visa, but they're going to lose their job and now they want to buy a business of their own, that if they're here in lawful status pursuant to a visa admission, they can file to change status. Right. And the change of status to E2 have been moving pretty quickly, like, you know, a month and a half or so. I think in large part because the filings are way down with immigration. I think I was reading 60%, you know, less filings with immigration. So those officers have a little bit more time on their hands, I guess, to be able to adjudicate things a little bit more quickly.
Right. And
then same holds true with the L1 as say with an E2, except the time frame may vary. 2 years for an E2, a brand new office L1 is 1 year. If it's not a new office and someone's being transferred and they're already here, it can be up to 3 years.
Right. And I guess we might see some more change of status given the theoretical backlog that may be occurring in the various embassies, right?
It could be. It's a matter of if somebody's here already, because now the catch is someone could have a valid visitor visa and say they're in the UK and say, well, I would like to buy a business, but I can't do that, or I want to look for a business and I can't really file and get a visa now at the embassy. I'll come in with my B1, B2. That's a bit of an issue now too, because we have travel restrictions. You know, travel bans on the Schengen countries and the UK. Newly added about a week ago was Brazil. There's restrictions with Canada and Mexico for non-essential travel. So that's adding another layer of difficulty, I guess, as far as being able to get over here to the US. There are some exceptions to the travel, particularly if a U.S. citizen connection, family member, etc.
So under that guise, we don't recommend it because you're landlocked, changing your status. It's a perfectly legal method. It's just, there's some prohibitions. You can't leave the country. You don't have a
Well,
visa.
it's interesting. Sometimes people say, well, when I was here as a visitor, I changed my status for 2 years to an E2, but I feel like I'm landlocked. And I always say, you're never landlocked because you can always leave, but can you get back in?
Get back in, right. Right.
So it feels like you're landlocked because the getting back in is the question. Can I get back in? How long is it going to take to get to the visa, etc.?
Right, but they have legal status in the United States. They can operate businesses, et cetera.
For sure, they can run the business. And some people come to the U.S. and they don't want to go back, and they don't want a visa, and they're happy to stay put. And then, they may change their status and get a 2 years on the E2. They're running the business. It's all going well. We file and get another extension for 2 years, and you can pretty much keep doing that indefinitely.
Right.
So that's an
probably
advantage.
10, 15 years ago when we had some problems at the London embassy, there was a lot of that going on because there was a backlog, and took so long that people were buying businesses that were, they couldn't get a business because they were moving too quick.
Yeah, it was taking 6 months or more to just review an application, and deals were falling through. So a lot of folks said, well, I'll come in as a visitor and then change my status.
Right.
You have to be careful if someone's coming in as a visitor. When they're coming in as a visitor, they have to truthfully represent that they're here to visit. So if they say, I'm coming in as a visitor to file and switch over to an E2, they're likely going to be put back on the plane because they're not really indicating that they're here as a visitor. A lot can change for people in a 6-month time frame. So they may come in as a visitor and then find a business after a few months and maybe unexpectedly, and thinking, well, I was going to go back, but I don't want to lose this business. My initial visit, the intention's now changed.
So in short, little bit of an update that the USCIS is kind of moving along, right? That they've started.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign that CIS is reopening. Any reopening in any, there's in the UK, the kids going back to school, USCIS starting to reopen, those are all positives. It's better than we were a month or two ago.
Right. And then secondly, that if you're applying, you should be putting your paperwork in. The queue is the queue. It's better to be in the queue than to wait, because that backlog is just going to get worse. So don't hesitate to start putting your paperwork in, and then on the other side, the sellers and the brokers are just going to have to work with that reality and deal with it.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
And assumedly too, the embassies are going to want to follow the same sort of social distancing that now the local offices are, and based on, space and concerns in the office, it's maybe likely that the volume is going to be less than it was in the past as well.
Right, and there'll be some pressure applied probably from the brokerage community and the legal community to kind of expedite stuff, and then the government will figure out another way of,
I know some people have said, do you think the government or the embassies might waive the interviews and just grant the visas by mail? I doubt it. I have not heard any rumblings to that effect. And who knows? It could happen, but I doubtful.
Yeah, you think Zoom call? No, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be nice to think that maybe it could, but I suppose if there's any susceptibility to fraud or misrepresentation, that's problematic with the government.
Well, thank you. Where can everybody get a hold of you?
You can go to my website, which is really easy to remember. It's lisavisa.com, or you can email me, lisa@lisavisa.com, or you can call, the phone number is 407-351-9075.
Okay. So for those of you in the UK or parts in Europe, we'll be starting to work through our London office. And Henry, you want to give them the address and the phone number and how to contact you at the London office?
Sure, yeah. So you can email us at henry@tworlduk.com, or give us a call on 0203 911 1059.
Okay.
But
all right.
put the country code in first.
Okay. Super. Thank you both.